it's very obvious that this is a concerted attack. These are not amateurs, and it's not the type of the usual sort of fanatical leftist or green activists, the same one that were judged in Britain. I mean, they are coordinated, but not with that level of expertise.
The attention should now be shifting to the sport, of course, but the word sabotage is all over the UK headlines. What are people saying about it on your side of the channel?
It's of course it's sabotage, and of course it's sabotage organized by people who both had the technical expertise, who knew exactly where to burn points and connections so that they would paralyze a maximum of the French high-speed network. Only one escaped. That was the southeast line, the line that goes from Paris to Avignon, Marseille, Nice, etc. Because employees of the railways were at 4 a.m. nearby, and they called the police, and they managed to put the arsonists to flight.
Yes.
But it's very obvious that this is a concerted attack. These are not amateurs, and it's not the type of the usual sort of fanatical leftist or green activists, the same one that were judged in Britain. I mean, they are coordinated, but not with that level of expertise.
And given that things are not that clear so far, and there are lots of agencies, I'm assuming, that will be involved in the investigation, which one is currently taking the lead?
I do not know. I do not know because they don't tell us.
Yes.
But it's there are a number of sort of, you have, first of all, you've got France is a country that has known the most terrorism in the past more than half century, and although most of that terrorism came from different points, mostly Middle Eastern. We've had Algerian terrorism, we've had Palestinian terrorism in the 70s, we've had Iranian terrorism in the 80s, we've had again Algerian terrorism in the 90s, because France was the sort of the hinterland of the bloody civil war that killed a 250,000 people in Algeria between 1992 and 2000, for instance. It's never stopped. And after 9/11, it started again. And therefore, and we now have homegrown terrorism because of a laïcité and the objection to radical Islam. So we have fairly well trained specialists who are being consulted, but this is something different. And the finger in Paris is more or less pointing to Russia, possibly abetted or equipped by Iran.
Right, okay. Well, in the meantime, there's ongoing disruption for people on this side of the channel and elsewhere in France, tourists coming in, people who want to see the sport. What is the state of play at the moment? Because I understand, certainly from a London point of view, a quarter of Eurostar services going into France have been cancelled until Monday.
Yes, that is because the lines, not only the functioning of the lines, but also the security of the lines was destroyed, or at least crippled to a point when the trains are being rerouted on non-high speed lines, and that means that for the Eurostar takes 1 hour more than the usual time of travel, which is about a little over 2 hours, and that also means that you can't have as many, because otherwise they would collide on the way. So there are fewer trains. I would say that if they manage to sort of rebuild the stuff by Monday, considering the size of the attack, and I'm not somebody who's usually happy with the service I get from railways in France,
Yes.
but that will be quite remarkable if they make it work for Monday.
Yeah. And now, Anne-Elisabeth, I was in Paris earlier this week, and you couldn't move for soldiers and gendarmes. And when I say thousands on the street, I do mean thousands, especially by the Seine. But now that the opening ceremony is over, one would expect things to have eased, especially in the centre of Paris.
Yes. Now, the same kind of security that you've seen and we all complain bitterly about. And I live in a red zone. So yesterday I needed a code to get out of my home. And quite honestly, I just didn't. I just stayed home. We've had railings across the streets. We had 44,000 sort of units of railing, which were kind of sort of upright grills, 8 foot tall, that sort of segregated from people people on the pavements from the streets which were empty, and it was a really strange view. We are very happy. We had snipers on the roofs and everything. We're very happy that nothing happened during the massive sort of opening ceremony. It's getting a bit better, but you can imagine that the police are feeling that anything can happen because whoever sabotaged the trains may not want to stop there.
Yeah. And as a Parisian, Anne-Elisabeth, you'll have had your frustrations and your irritations getting around, being blocked. Everyone talked about Paris being bloqué. And the taxi drivers were telling me, c'est un catastrophe. There aren't enough tourists. We're not making money. We can't go anywhere. But do you think if the sport goes well and the picture of France, of Paris, broadcast to the world is a good one, will people, les Parisiens, learn to love these games?
I think we most of us loved the ceremony. You could argue about small details during the various tableaus, but by and large we liked it. In terms of the city, the choices for those games have been similar to the choices for COVID.
Oh,
We felt like lockdown, and it looked like it really felt like lockdown, complete with those strange permits you had to carry everywhere.
yeah.
This, it was not liked. We know very well that the hotels have got far fewer bookings now than they had last year when it was a normal year. We know that restaurants have lost a great deal of their customers. That economically, the games are not going to be a success at all. And considering that you've got both, anybody who's in the catering industry. Has had to deal with COVID, has to reimburse the loans that were made at that time, or just had no help from the government. For instance, I mean, the grocer opposite my home had suffered from COVID because it was open because you were supposed to be able to buy food, but there were no customers because everybody was locked in their homes, and many of the people in my area are people who commute to work in my area. The economic consequences of this are going to be felt for a long time.
Yeah, but hopefully, culturally, that might at least ease the pain a little. Or maybe I'm being too optimistic, Elizabeth. Briefly, if you will.
I I would say that it was an interesting. It was spectacular. It was beautiful. People were extremely happy about it. The images were splendid, and as a send-off for the games, it was something unprecedented. And having a rapper from the banlieue sing with the chorus of the Garde Républicaine was something that was about some of the best about France. That was really impressive. So overall, there may be some scenes that people didn't like so much, but overall, I think they're very proud, and that will help in terms of optimism. Whether it will solve the political sort of completely blocked situation that we're in,
Yeah.
that's something else. But President Macron, who spoke very, very little yesterday, carefully, probably will reap a little bit of a honeymoon, not very long.
All right. Anne-Elisabeth, thank you very much indeed for being with us on Times Radio. And Anne-Elisabeth Moutet is a Paris-based journalist for The Telegraph. It's Henry Bonsu on Times Radio. Coming up, crypto trading addiction can be as ruinous as gambling addiction. We'll talk to a therapist at the country's first addiction clinic. Plus, we'll pop to the US for the latest election news. Plus, I've been asking you which artists you would have booked to perform at last night's opening ceremony along the Seine. Technical operator Kai would have picked this artist.